Hello, this is attorney Kiril Stawrew. Hello and welcome. I'm a German attorney, and today I'd like to explain to you how attorney and court fees are calculated in Germany according to the RVG, the Lawyers' Compensation Act. Now, what is the RVG? In Germany, legal fees for attorneys are calculated based on a statutory fee schedule, the Rechtsanwaltsvergütungsgesetz in German, or RVG. This law determines the attorney's fees according to the so-called value in dispute, in German Gegenstandswert, or sometimes Streitwert, as you can see here. That is the amount, the monetary amount that the case is about. Now, the same value in dispute also determines the court fees. Both sets of costs are scaled. The higher the disputed value, the higher the fees. For example, a claim worth 10,000 euro will trigger lower legal and court fees than a claim of 100,000 euro. Okay, so let's start with the first scenario. You go directly to court and hire an attorney who had not previously represented you out of court. So this is the first time you hire the attorney. Now, in this case, the attorney earns two types of fees, the so-called procedural fee and the hearing fee for the oral hearing. This is the procedural fee, as you can see it here, and this is the hearing fee for the oral hearing, which is paid only once, no matter how many hearings the court will schedule. So this is only a one-time flat fee. Now, on top of that, a fixed flat fee for expenses is added. This one here, it's usually 20 euro, as you will see in a few minutes, and also 19% VAT. Unless the client is from another EU country and qualifies for reverse charge VAT treatment, then obviously there is no VAT in those cases. Now, the court also charges its own fees based on the value in dispute. It's the same value, right? The one here, Streitwert. And the client who starts the lawsuit typically has to pay those court charges in advance. So now I would like to show you a specific example of what this means. Suppose we're dealing with a lawsuit involving a dispute value of 4,000 euro, right? So let's put 4,000 here in this box. The box is Streitwert, which means basically value in dispute or dispute value. Well, then you need to ensure that only court representation, in German gerichtliche Vertretung, only court representation is checked. This one here. And all other boxes are left unchecked. As you can see, with the dispute value of 4,000 euro, right? The court-related attorney fees amount to 850 euro and 85 cents. Now, and those are included 135 euro 85 cents VAT, right? So the attorney's fees, if you start a lawsuit about 4,000 euro, the attorney's fees that you will have to pay to your attorney are 850 euros and 85 cents. And obviously, the other party uh, will have to pay the same amount to their attorney, right? Because each attorney is getting, based on the same value, the same legal fees. So if you scroll down, you'll also see the court fees. This one, your Gerichtskosten, which in this case are 420 euro. Typically, court fees must be paid in advance as well as the attorney fees. However, if you win the case, the other party is typically obliged to reimburse these costs. So you prepay them, and if you win the case, the other party has to repay the attorney fees, and also the court charges to you. Now, in Germany, general rule is in civil cases that the losing party bears all the legal costs of the dispute, including both attorney's fees, court fees, and any additional costs, such as expert witness costs or interpreters if they are involved. Now, in this case, as you can see, the total amount of costs, which is the attorney's fees for the the one attorney and the attorney's fees for the other attorney, as well as the court charges, altogether are 2,121 euros and 70 cents, right? So the party who loses the case will have to pay altogether over 2,000 euro. Okay, so now let's move on to the second scenario. You had already hired the attorney for an out-of-court negotiations, such as sending a demand letter, negotiating with the other party, and so on and so forth, trying to resolve the matter without having to go to court. Now, in that case, your attorney has already earned an out-of-court fee, typically called a business fee under the FVG. Now, we're talking about this fee here. If you click on this one, außergerichtliche Vertretung, which means basically out of court representation, you'll see that this is the business fee here that your attorney gets for his out of court representation, right? So, okay. Now, if the matter goes to court afterwards, the earlier fee, this one here, the earlier fee is partially credited towards the procedural fee. As you can see, those 361 euro are credited here, are deducted from this procedural fee right here. And because of that, as you can see now, the attorney fees are reduced to 635 euro and 82 cents compared to the original 850 euro and 85 cents. Now, once again, to determine how much it would cost if you hired the attorney for a out-of-court representation and then you hire him once again for a court representation, you need to click both boxes, the gerichtliche Vertretung, which is the court representation, and also the außergerichtliche Vertretung, which is the out-of-court representation. You have to make sure that both boxes are checked. Obviously, you have to make sure that the dispute value is entered here, and then you can see how much he will have to get for the out-of-court proceedings. In this case, 453 euros and 87 cents, including 19% VAT. And for the representation before the German courts, the fee now that you will have to pay is 635 euro and 82 cents. Now, the reason for this credit is that the attorney has already worked for you before the court proceedings began and has already received compensation for this pre-litigation work. Now, this fee for the pre-litigation activity in our example, 361 euro and 40 cents net, right here, is credited at half towards the current court-related work, as you can see in this example right here. Okay. So, what happens if there is a settlement? Now, settlements are very common in German civil courts. If the parties reach a settlement during the proceedings, both attorneys are entitled to additional fees, meaning your attorney and also the attorney of the other party. They are both entitled to additional fees. The court, on the other hand, reduces its charges in the case of a settlement. I'd also like to illustrate this with an example. Now, if the case here in question concludes at the first instance with a settlement or any kind of agreement, both attorneys will incur a settlement fee. It's this one here, Einigungsgebühr. Einigungsgebühr means settlement fee, right? This one, Einigungsgebühr, settlement fee. So to determine this, you can check the box, this one here, and you will see the additional net fee of 278 euro, right? It arises for each attorney. So attorney number one, but also attorney number two, 278 euros, right? Okay. On the other hand, the court costs are reduced to only one third. As you can see here, they no longer amount to 420 euro, but only to 140. So the plaintiff is actually getting part of the court charges back when he reaches a settlement. And those 140 euros are two-thirds less than what was initially paid by the plaintiff to the court. Therefore, settling can actually reduce costs overall because it avoids further hearings and costly evidence assessments and the risk of losing the case and having to pay all the costs. Plus, settlements give both sides more control over the outcome. So, what do attorney fees typically cost? If fees are charged hourly, which is more common in international business contexts or sometimes in family law, typically hourly rates in Germany range from 180 euro to 700 euro and above plus VAT, depending on the lawyer's experience and the complexity of the case. Now, in my own practice, I adjust fees based on the client's financial situation, lower for private individuals in hardship, and higher for corporations and high net worth individuals. Also, if the client is a business based in another EU country, we usually do not charge German VAT thanks to the EU reverse charge rules. So, to summarize, legal costs in Germany are predictable, regulated, and largely dependent on the value of your case. But the system has many nuances, especially when combining out of court and court activity or when a settlement is on the table. If you're unsure about what fees you might face or what your legal options are, feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to walk you through the process and provide a transparent cost estimate tailored to your specific situation. Thank you very much for watching and take care.